Hi everyone, I'm Annette Badland. I play Margaret Blaine in Doctor Who, and you're going to listen to the 200th episode of Mark Who 42. Enjoy.
Mark Who 42 would like to welcome one of our sponsors, Highlander Novelties Comics and Games. They are run by my good friends Christian and Wendy Gillespie. Christian, they are good people, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I was just about to say, I was like, I don't run that store. Or
Not
the other
you,
Christian.
the other Christian. Highlander Novelties is a one-stop shop for pop and geek culture items.
Yes.
They specialize in the unique and throwback characters from the past and present. They've got comic books. They've got decals for your car. They've got signs. They make them themselves. They have a new location at the West Oaks Mall at 9401 West Colonial Drive, Suite 520, Ocoee, Florida, 34761. That's like right outside Orlando, isn't it, Christian?
A bit northwest outside of Orlando. Yeah, we were very excited to be part of the grand opening that they had out there and are even more excited that they've joined the family of sponsors here at Mark Who 42. You can check them out on their Facebook site. Again, as Mark mentioned, they are in Ocoee, Florida. Check out their Facebook site for their business hours. Check out for also any specials going on. I believe on their site they're having a special on October the 28th for Halloween Comic Fest.
Yes, they're having the Halloween Comic Fest 2017 and costume contest on the 28th. Just look up Highlander Novelties in the search bar and you'll find them. And please don't forget to tell them Mark Who 42 sent you. Welcome to Mark Who 42's 200th episode. Woohoo! You're listening to us on Krypton Radio or on one of the many podcast platforms out there. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. With me is...
Wait a minute, we've done this 200 times? Wow.
Are you kidding me?
Those are Christian Basil and Iggy Matthews. They're our co-hosts. I'm not kidding you. We've done this 200 times. And welcome, folks. This is an anniversary show. Woo! We've got a great guest on today's show. We've got Annette Badland, 200th episode. The Slovene from the Doctor Who show that we somehow cover. Christian, what is her Slovene name?
Blonfell-Foch Possumer de Slovene, or better known as a.k.a. Margaret Blaine.
Yes.
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Margaret Blaine.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's partly her fault that we got Saxon. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah. She's also been on Outlander, on EastEnders, on many shows around England that you probably have come across in the United States or elsewhere.
Oh, also, Annette was on, and I'll talk more about her when we get her on, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, yeah, we'll talk to her about that. And we're going to celebrate. Guys, 200 shows. Wow, both of you weren't on since the beginning. I've been here since the beginning. 200 shows in exactly 5 years. I cannot believe it. Because 5 years ago, this weekend, we dropped the first episode. We've been saying that, our 5th anniversary was April 1st, but that was because that was our Facebook page opening. And we said
Just kidding.
And we said that we were on our 5th anniversary in August because that's when our first show dropped. But this show started this weekend 5 years ago. 200 episods.
5 years ago, when Palm Pilots were more than just an innuendo, it was the actual device that people used there.
Did people use a Zune back then? I don't know.
That is a good question. What happened 5 years ago, dude? I don't even remember. So that brings us to 2012.
I probably had a kid. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past me.
You probably had a kid? Yeah.
Such the loving mother.
We recorded this just before a Hurricane Who that was 5 years ago, and then we dropped it when we got back from Hurricane Who, and then our second episode, we played the Q&A session between Charles Martin and Peter Davison. So technically our first guest was Peter Davison. And technically, but not really. But we've had him on since. But 200 years 200 years, 200 episodes. 200
you wish,
years.
you freaking vampire.
I'm a vampire. I'm immortal. You can kill me with a steak. And I do like my steak rare.
Medium rare?
Medium rare.
Ah, I was close.
He bathes in the blood of politicians.
Rare. I will eat a steak tartare if given to me. I will be nice enough to eat that. But don't give me a well-done steak, because that's burnt. You've ruined the steak.
That's a car tire right there.
If you use a well-done steak, even if it's well done. All right, so let's start our 200th episode merriment. Let me also add, later in the program, we're going to have one of our original and co-hosts.
Co-creator?
Co-creator. That does sound weird.
Was that a female joke?
Co-creator. That sounds weird. Co-creator.
Well, he's already on the show.
Well,
so.
especially when we know part of the story.
We're going to be talking about the history of Mark Who 42 with Trish Helm-Freyre now. Trish Helm-Freyre.
That was your fault.
She's on the show. It was my fault, and we'll talk about that during that segment, too. And we've got another one of those lovely segments, the second half of our two-part review of that episode we were talking about last week. That'll be in Who's Listening with Christopher Baggott and myself. But first, let's go to... anchor persons, Christian Basil and Iggy Matthews. Christian and Iggy, what do we have in the world of Mark Who 42's universe?
Well, speaking of a blast from the past, you remember that daughter of his, the daughter of the doctor's named Jenny?
Yes!
Jenny? You mean 867-5309? That's the number I called her? I called her.
Okay, so anyway, back to what I was talking about. If you've heard all the speculations, including the rumor that I think that Russell T. Davies said that she actually went in the rocket, launched, and hit the planet that was next, that she was about to hit on the way up there.
So she died.
Jenny is alive and well, doing quite okay, and Georgia Tennant, formerly known as Moffat, is back.
Yay.
Jenny, who's played the Doctor in 2008, she will be returning. She will be joined by former Harry Potter star Sean Biggerstaff.
Oh, wow.
So we are getting a bigger staff.
We are getting a bigger staff. We are. Yeah.
Georgia stated that she is thrilled to be back in Doctor Who world and excited to be bringing Jenny back. But then Georgia really never left the world of Doctor Who. If you really think about it, her dad is a doctor. Her husband is a doctor. And you know,
she did the animated Dreamland.
Yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about that. Yeah. So the 4 adventures that will be produced are called Stolen Goods, Prisoner of the Ood, Neon Rain, and Zero Space. Now, keep an eye out for Mark Who 42 booth. When this is released to our merchandise section, we will be providing Jenny, the Doctor's daughter, and all of her audio at our booth at conventions when Big Finish releases it. So very excited, and nice to know that Jenny does have a life after hitting that planet on the way up and not dying there.
Yeah, I found her number on the wall.
In the bathroom?
Yeah, I did.
No way.
In the stall. Yeah.
Crickets.
Hey, that's a good song.
Anyway, Jenny will be returning. It's nice to know. I've always wanted to know the explanation of why she didn't officially regenerate.
Because they didn't want to hire a new actor.
Yeah, I mean, besides, I meant canon-wise, why she managed to keep her face. And we know that back when there was kind of a different gender differential, that the female Time Lords could change their appearance per set for the second Romana, when she kept changing herself every time she came in and out of the room until she was Lalla Ward. So I guess they can keep their appearance if they like it enough. So
why couldn't they keep that tall girl, that really, really tall woman in there?
Could you imagine her running through all those rock quarries and stuff like that with that outfit?
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, I'm not asking her to wear high heels. I'm not asking for that.
Height load 6 feet, bam, you're gone. You ever see those videos where those semi-rigs are going under the bridge and they go too fast?
and the top comes off.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I see her doing.
Must
on every
not exceed
episode.
8 feet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
8'1".
Doesn't meet the height requirement for this door. So Congratulations, Georgia Tennant, for coming back to the series. I'm very excited to see the storyline behind Jenny. I think a lot of people did. So,
I'm glad you're ready to see it. I'm ready to listen to it.
Your putts. Anyway.
200 episodes.
Iggy,
I'm running out of material.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, no, we're not.
We're
All right, so next on the list, we're going to talk about some military madness here. Mark Who 42 listeners and fans, the Brigadier seems that has been leading a double life, but in book form. Okay, Brigadier Alistair Lethbridge Stewart, God bless him, is known for his adventures with UNIT and the Doctor. But what if he had other adventures without the Doctor? What if the Brigadier was a soldier with a conscience and a mission to protect and serve? You can find out a little bit more about this on www.lethbridgestewart.co.uk to find out. But you can enter in this world through a series of novels that take place in the years following the Web of Fear, if you guys remember that. Read along as the Brigadier rises from Colonel to Brigadier and to the leader to be the top secret military organization whose job it is to protect the United Kingdom. Sounds familiar. And sometimes the world from both threats, foreign and domestic. Now, if that's not patriotism, I don't know what is.
Yeah. I actually have a few of these books on my Kindle. I've read the first one, The Forgotten Son, which picks up just after Web of Fear. It's a really good series. They've had some of the Doctor Who writers and some original writers doing these stories, and it fleshes out the history between when we first see him and when he is running UNIT. They can't use the Doctor in it because it's not BBC, but some of the aliens that are used in it, which are owned by certain writers, have given the rights to the Brigadier stories so that it does fit in the Doctor Who universe. And they're really good books. And you can get some free ones. There are some free mini novels, little novellas, if you go to the website and you can check it. This has been around for about 1.5 years, 2 years now. And they are just great books. You should check them out.
And you had mentioned the Brigadier had a double life, and the first thing I'm thinking, he's doing 2 shows a night at the bar.
Well,
at the local tavern or whatever.
Please welcome the Brigadier.
You also mentioned that he was a colonel, and the first thing I thought were these multiple people playing Colonel Lethbridge Stewart and going, I hope you like my bucket of chicken.
Oh, my God. What an alien thigh.
But it's British accent.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
With my secret recipe.
Doctor.
Hold on, I'm getting a call to
5
the
chicken
planet.
wings.
Extra crispy. Anyway, moving on. And I love the Gadget picked this particular title, especially now that we're entering the Christmas holiday season. Do you who would I hear?
No, I really do not.
Well,
My God.
Just
it's time for Bewitched Tots.
Yeah, this. Just a little quick blurb on this one. At the MCM London Comic Con, there was a question posed to David Bradley, who appeared as the first Doctor in An Adventures in Space and Time, which was the documentary about William Hartnell and the episode, Doctor Who in its fruition. And now David Bradley is coming out with First Doctor Adventures on audio, The Destination Wars, and The Great White Hurricane.
And the Christmas episode Twice Upon the Time.
I'm getting there. Oh,
I'm just getting there quicker.
Gotta throw in your two. Yes, you're right, Mark. Yes, he is doing the Christmas special. But he was asked if he would continue being the Doctor. If asked if he wanted to be the first Doctor on television, and David said, quote unquote, I think it would be very fun. I'd be very interested. Yeah, of course. So this is something we've been talking about here. About continuing the Doctor. Not only we've been talking about maybe a spinoff for the 8th Doctor to complete his life cycle, but maybe not only continuing the first Doctor's life cycle, but adding new stories. And in some cases, people have mentioned, well, instead of trying to find these old stories that have been lost and possibly lost forever, why doesn't David and the team that did the Adventures in Space and Time recreate them and bring them back to the present day? What do you guys think about those?
I would love it. Let's have some hidden stories from the first Doctor coming back as a spinoff. I love that.
I mean, we were literally just complaining about lack of content, so...
Yeah, Doctor Who, the early years. I know I'm stealing that from Big Finish, but that's what the show should be called. Doctor Who, the early years.
It reminds me of Timon and Pumbaa when they're having this conversation in Lion King 1.5, like, let's go back to before the beginning.
What's on the menu?
What's on the menu?
Yeah.
No, actually, what would be cool is if you just had him and Susan and had stuff that took place before Unearthly Child.
Wait, Timon and Susan?
No, the Doctor and Susan.
I got to agree with Andrew Cartmel on that one. I think we need to keep him Doctor Who.
All right. Well, I'm not saying give us... don't get him on Gallifrey leaving. Just have adventures in that time frame where we can have anything happen.
I would say put him on an adventure and maybe occasionally flashback a time on Gallifrey where he had to make...
Are you having flashbacks again, Christian? Is that what the problem is?
I'm getting a really That's So Raven moment from you right now, man.
Look into my eye. No. Please don't compare me to Raven-Symoné. Anyway, there's that. Now, Iggy, take it away.
Don't tell me what to do. Mark, who listeners and fans, you too, the Shannara Chronicles. Shannara? My Shannara.
My Shannara.
So season 2, episode 4 is here for those who are gifted with magic and for those who ask the help from magic.
Yeah.
It seems the two differ when others claim the underlying factors they dare not speak about. Sometimes the bargains we make need to be repaid, but what happens when that bargain has a different choice for you? We call that a plot twist.
Yeah.
So
let me say something for all our fans out there. Yes, we're a Doctor Who show, but we do cover other things, as you know. And one of our news writers on a website, Gadget, loves the Shannara Chronicles. Met the people at Spike TV and the people doing Shannara Chronicles at the New York Comic Con, and besides doing interviews, which we did and they're on the site, they are giving her access to the episodes to write reviews of this season. So we're kind of like, it has absolutely nothing to do with Doctor Who, but we're putting reviews of the episodes on the site. So, yeah, that's why we have that you're talking about.
And to be fair, is actually pretty interesting. And from what I understand, it's episode 4, we find out the heroes and regrouping and healing for the shocks. And it's just all this very toned down, almost Game of Thrones. What is he going to do? But what is she going to do? Oh my God. No. What is this? What just happened? Tune in next week. What? So it definitely would be a little bit open-minded to try it out, because from the little bit that I have seen, the scenes are just absolutely beautiful. It looks like it's very well done. Mm-hmm. The only issue here is pronouncing the flippin' name. Shannara?
I would just go with my Shannara. And get it over.
My Shannara.
Exactly. That's what I would do.
Or there was Christian earlier. Off Mike.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of Big Finish, I didn't know where to go with that. So
I
got you. Well, that's my Big Finish.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Speaking of Big Finish.
Family show.
Speaking of Big Finish, we've been. This has been the answer to my prayers of all things that have been wanting to happen since that River Song has been going down the Doctor's timeline. Finally, she gets to meet up with 6 and 7. Now she's going to meet up with 5 and 4. Finally, I can't wait to get my hands on the episode with River Song and Tom Baker. That's gotta be a hoot. If it's well written, my God, this is going to be excellent. But yes, River Song is planning to meet Doctors 5 and 4. Series 3 will be released January 2018. Look out for the Mark 242 booth to have these. She'll be reprising her role as Peter Davison as the 5th Doctor, and this time facing off everybody's favorite evil midwife, Madame Kavorian, voiced by Frances Barber.
Oh, wow.
But Christian, why was 6 afraid of 7?
Because she ate something.
Because
8, 9. And I know that joke, and I should know that.
That's what reminded me of. I'm like, oh my god, numbers.
Well, if this is the trend, now I'm curious how they're going to reprise 1, 2, and 3. Hopefully, David Bradley will probably be number 1. 2 would be Frasier, and 3 would be
Treloar. Yeah.
So depending upon the series, but yeah, I'm just excited for 4 and River. That's got to be the matchup of the new century here to see how they would rub off each other. But yeah, just keep an eye out for the Mark Who 42 booth. Once they release it to us, we'll definitely be selling that episode. I am buying it for Mark.
Yes, you are.
Not even a question.
You are.
Moving on. So
speaking
of my finish,
I kind of have to drop the mood a little bit and tell you some real things that happen in the world this month.
Real things?
Yes.
They were fake.
I have some sad news for you. It seems that Patricia Russell, Patty
Russell,
to her friends and colleagues, has passed away on November 2nd, 2017, where she died peacefully of natural causes. So, she was born on July 4th, 1928. She was actually the first female British television director, and she was the director of Doctor Who. One story Patty directed was The Massacre, with her beloved first Doctor, William Hartnell. And from what I have read, she was a very, very headstrong, phenomenal, strong female. And our condolences from Mark Who 42 to the family, friends, and colleagues who had the pleasure of working with her and knowing her.
That is ending the news on a sad note.
No, it's not ending.
Oh, we're not ending?
No, we still got a few more here. This has been an interesting week. And I'm going to bring it back onto a high note. Everybody remember our friend Caitlin Blackwood, but you know her as Amelia Pond. She is having a wonderful event where she will be meeting fans and dining with them at the Pandorica restaurant. The Pandorica is located in New York at 165 Main Street, Beacon, New York, zip code 12508. The event is scheduled to take place on June 7th from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. If you remember, and we won't go into too much of a minutia, we were scheduled to appear at a convention in Ohio. It kind of tanked, but our good friend Heather Seaman Daly came in and rescued a bunch of Whovians that were just not going to have anything and made Ohio Who convention. And Caitlin was there along with Terry Malloy, and there are rumors that there might be a second convention. So, Heather, congratulations, well done, and all my Whovian love to you guys.
Yeah.
But the event is going to be $125 for each, and they're going fast. And it's worthy. She's a wonderful girl. We had her on with Fraser Hines to discuss her upcoming short film, Sundown, written by Ryan Hendrick. And if you really want to meet a fantastic woman, by all means, go out and see her over there. Tickets are on sale right now. Plus, I just want to add this to it because everything you're going to see here that we've discussed is on marku42.net. Check it out for yourselves. Become part of the discussion. Speaking of part of the discussion, we need writers. You want to be part of the big, big Whoniverse that is expanding and growing, and especially on our website, we need writers to come in. If you're somebody who wants to review something, if you're somebody who wants to help with our journalist section, please write to us at marku42@yahoo.com, subject line marku42.net. Please just submit a resume, your interests, become part of the volunteers here, become something exciting. I am happy to announce that on Alexa.com, based upon their ratings that were sent to us from Krypton Radio, marku42.net resides as the #1 Doctor Who podcast website. We are the leader of the band. So if you want to be part of that, get experience.
We are the champions.
And just be part of something that's growing and getting bigger and bigger each day.
And we keep on climbing
to the top.
Till the end.
Well, anyway, be part of the newswriter team, folks. If you've been somebody who's saying, you know what, I have an opinion about something and I just want to say it somewhere where people can read it, join us here at marku42.net. Again, it is marku42@yahoo.com.
All right.
And that's all for the news today. That's all she wrote. And this news segment of Marku42 has been brought to you by Cosplay Convention Center. You can see more information about them at marku42.net. The great thing about this is they are a database for cosplayers, for practically anybody who works in the convention limelight. If you're looking for us, they have a database that not only narrows down where we're going to be, but if you're looking, let's say, for Doctor Who conventions in your area, Doctor Who conventions in general, or other genres, you can go to their site and you can go into the database, narrow down your search to locations that are close by to you. It's a wonderful database tool to use if you need information about your favorite genre, your favorite podcasts, where they're going to appear, all of that. Check it out for yourself. Go down to markwho42.net and click on the icon for Cosplay Convention Center. You'll be glad you did. Tell markwho42.net sent you.
Well, thank you very much for the news. Guys, we're going to take a break. Well, we have a great show. It's our 200th episode. We are going to come back. We will have Annette Badland talking about her career and of Doctor Who. And then we will, after that, we'll have Who's Listening, the 4th installment, with our review of the second part of Time in Office with Peter Davison, Louise Jameson, and Janet Fielding. And we're also going to have a little segment with Iggy and my co-creator of Mark Who 42's Universe.
Oh, yes.
Patricia Helm-Freyre. Or Freyre Helm? Or, well, she'll say her name correctly.
Helm and a Fryer. We're getting close to Thanksgiving, so deep fryer.
Patricia Helm-Freyre. Yeah, it's my fault. It's all my fault, and you'll find out what my fault is. So we'll be right back after this.
Don't go away. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
Hey, Iggy.
Yes?
I know that you started watching Doctor Who as a newbie, with the new show, but have you gotten a chance to watch all 7 classic Doctors in action?
I have not.
Well, you can find the most complete collection of Doctor Who ever broadcast in the U.S. on Retro TV.
Shut the front door. Are you serious?
I'm serious, and you don't even need cable for this. This is over-the-air television. You have an HD antenna. You can watch around the country Retro TV. Many of the stories have been remastered and enhanced from their original film and videotape elements, so they come out beautifully perfect in HD.
Mind blown.
It's free. You just have to go to your TV and find Retro TV, and you can watch all the great Doctor Who. They show 2 episodes Monday through Friday, and they show more than that.
I think I shall get my pajamas and my Ben & Jerry's then.
And recently they've added new stories. Not new stories as in like they've made new stories, but new stories that they haven't had in rotation, such as several Patrick Troughton tales that weren't on before. They're adding them to them. So there's more to watch because, those new stories became available. Web of Fear and Enemy of the World. So they've added things like that.
Oh my, I'm excited.
So don't forget to go and look for Retro TV and watch Doctor Who. You can go to RetroTV.com and look for their schedule for exactly when Doctor Who is on in your area.
I'm logging in as we speak.
Jamie Engel is an award-winning author of science fiction and horror novels and stories. The Toilet Papers, a book that she wrote, is a collection of short stories ranging from 50 words to more than 5,000 to match your bathroom needs. But here are some other facts that you may not know about her. She cosplays Marty McFly Jr., Wonder Woman, Garth from Wayne's World, and Trinity from The Matrix. She speaks to kids about bullying and to authors about writing and marketing their books. She once owned a body shop, managed a hip-hop band, and danced at the Aloha Bowl halftime show. Wow, that's really cool. But without coffee, the world would end. So definitely you should read some of Jamie Engel's work, and you can if you go to her website, therighteangle.com. THEWRITEENGLE.com. And don't forget, follow her on Instagram at The Right Angle.
I'm Colin Baker, and you are listening to Mark Who 42, The Meaning of Life.
Welcome back to Mark Who 42, and yes, it's our 200th episode, and we are proud. Oh, I can't believe we've been around for 200 episodes. I am I am your host.
I betted that we would have dropped out at 99.
Yeah, well, with
I
you,
lost
we
the bet,
don't know.
thankfully.
You lost the bet. I think I've won. I counted 1,000. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, dear God.
I'm Mark Baumgarten, your host. We've got Christian Basil. We've got Zion Kiros. And our special guest for our 200th episode, we have Annette Badland. Hello, Annette.
Everyone. Hello. Woo, woo. Happy birthday.
Thank you. For those of you who are Doctor Who fans, you know her as, the Slovene. And can you say the name of the planet you're from, Annette?
Of course I can. Raxacoricophalapatorius.
Oh!
Yeah.
That's where I'm speaking from.
That's where you're speaking. Oh. Yes, we have an intergalactic...
She's back. She was an egg when we last left her.
Yes, I know. Right. Well, I've been developing, you see. I'm out of my shell.
Have you become good?
I'll let you know.
I mean, if you can't...
That's a good answer.
That's a good answer. But, I mean, I thought you came back as Babe Smith, and then I wouldn't say that you really did in a way. We'll be talking about that, too. You don't know what I'm talking about, folks. So Annette, for those of our listeners who don't know anything about you, can you tell us a little about yourself, about your career?
Oh, well, I'm very old, so my career's been long, and I've done quite a bit. Started in theatre more than television, RSC, the Actors Company with Sir Ian McKellen, and then started doing television when I was, I suppose, late 20s, early 30s. My first telly was The Naked Civil Servant with John Hurt. People may know that.
Yes.
And he played a character where he learnt to tap dance in the morning and tried to teach me in the afternoon. And we had great fun doing that. And then my first series was Bergerac, which...
yes, Bergerac, yeah.
Yeah, John Nettles. And strangely, it's as though I'm stalking him because John went on to do Midsummer Murders, and I am the new pathologist in Midsummer Murders. John's left, but I am now in that playing Fleur Perkins, who's the pathologist.
I love Midsummer Murders because you guys filmed that right near where my sister lives. My sister lives in Aylesbury. And you're in,
right.
So when I watch Midsummer's Murders, I get a view of where she lives. It's a wonderful show. I love it. It's funny, yet it's murder, so it's not funny.
Yeah, crime drama with jokes, marvelous.
With jokes, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the image of England everyone, including the English, want to retain as well. It's how we imagine England to be, and it isn't.
It's not, no.
And I've gone in and out of theatre, the National, the Royal Court, the major London theatres, done some West End, and then lots of telly interspersed with that, and a little bit of film.
And the first film you did, I think, was Jabberwocky.
Yes, it was, and it was Terry Gilliam's first independent movie as well, and they've just remastered it. So I went to do the launch at the BFI with Mike and Terry about a fortnight ago, and a lot of fun that was too, because it was amazing. The interviewer asked me then, did I think at the time, because it was my first movie, what the hell have I got myself into? But actually, I wish more filming was like it, because it was glorious and insane, and Terry's natural exuberance and joy of life.
He's a genius, isn't he?
He's wonderful. Yeah. Extraordinary mind, and just great to be with him again, being daft.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the Blu-ray when it comes out with the remastered footage. That should be really cool.
All right, yes.
Do you have any idea when that's coming out?
Nope.
Okay.
They seem to be doing an awful lot at the moment, which is extraordinary. I mean, for me, when they said, we're remastering it, I kind of thought, well, I mean, it's not that old. Come on. It's 40 years. To me, it's nothing.
They're cleaning the dust off the film reel. That's about it. Nothing about this Blu-ray stuff or whatever. Back in Betamax.
Yeah.
All right. So let's keep this going. So you've done a lot of TV, and I can't believe that one of the first things you did, well, not one of the first things, but you were on Crossroads.
Yes, I was. I've done... yes, I was.
You were.
It was a little experiment. My father was terribly pleased. It's not something I talk about a lot, the wobbly sets and the...
Well,
yeah,
wobbly sets are important in Doctor Who, so wobbly sets are fun.
And they're still using men hiding behind cardboard sets and pulling things on bits of string. I discovered my episode anyway.
But the cool thing about it is, because it's a soap opera, and you've done other soap operas. I mean, you've done. You're on the Archers, aren't you? On the radio series. Yeah.
Horrid Hazel Woolley in the Archers, I forgive her because she was adopted, and I think that was very painful to her.
Right.
So that's my reasoning for her being as vile as she is. And then I've just done a stint in EastEnders.
And that is my second favorite show. Doctor Who number 1, EastEnders number 2. I keep up with it. I am only about 2 weeks behind on the current storyline of EastEnders right now.
Right, better than me. I see my family, my EastEnders family. I see Danny and Kelly and Louisa and all. And Danny Boy we saw recently in a play with Ted. But I am not up to speed. Oh, and I was with Linda Marlowe, who played my sister in it last night. We went to see a play together. So, so it really, you do become a family if you're in it, because you actually see the actors you're working with more than your own family.
Right.
Because you spend so much time there. So you do, it becomes a second family for you, and you retain all sorts of loyalties and, history together, which is fantastic. So I suddenly have this whole other family strand alongside my own normal existence. And I also did a bit in Corrie. I did 3 episodes. Yeah. I was doing a series called Cutting It, which was set in Manchester, written by Debbie Horsfield, who has been the lady who's been adapting Poldark. And
Henshaw, yeah.
Yes, another foul person. Based on a real woman. Yes. And foul-mouthed and abusive to her children, and just someone who felt she hadn't got what she deserved in life, so she punished herself and everybody else around her, including her children and her husband, mightily. But anyway, I had a break, a gap in filming, and luckily I could fit in these 3 episodes of Corrie, where I did some belly dancing and owned a poodle that was pink. And again, had a lot of fun on that, a lot of silliness trying to seduce a young lad. Of course, it didn't work. But actually, talking about Cutting It, that's what I was also doing when I did the Doctor Who. Not initially, because often because they were regenerating it, they don't film the first episode of anything straight up, because they want to know how the machine works and got everything in place so it's running really smoothly, so their first ep goes well. So they actually filmed eps 4 and 5 first up. So I went and did those, and then Russell liked what I was doing and wrote Margaret Blaine and Boomtown for me, which was astounding, and arrived around Christmas time, so it was a wonderful Christmas present. But by that time, I'd gone on to Cutting It. So Phil Collinson and Russell and the producers of Cutting It had to work quite hard to make it possible for me to travel from Manchester in the north of England down to Cardiff in Wales and up and down. And certainly Doctor Who changed their schedule considerably to make it work. And the restaurant scene, because that had to be shot at night because of the windows in the restaurant.
Right.
They shipped me down. I arrived, I did a filming day on Cutting It. They drove me down. We waited for it to go dark. We shot the restaurant scene, and they pushed me in the back of a van with a pillow and drove me back to Manchester. So I got back to Manchester about 5 a.m, had an hour, showered, and then had to be out for 6 o'clock for my filming day on Cutting It. Wonderful to do, and fantastic of them to allow that, because often producers won't now. They're very afraid with schedules of losing actors and, things not working. So and Chris Eccleston, who was the doctor then, they actually were filming an entirely different episode, and they just had to slot that one day in to make any of it possible. I'm sorry, I've got a cold. I hope no one catches it.
I actually caught it this morning. I don't know how that happened.
I think Skype has its own viruses that we have to work through. Not necessarily the contagious.
Worse than colds.
No, I'm going to try to say this as best I can, Mark. So forgive me if I butcher this name. I'm going to try my best. But were you a Whovian before you became Blonfelfoch Passemer de Slevine?
Well done!
I just call her Margaret Blaine. It's easier.
Well, I'm way back with... you can call me Blonde.
I can't pronounce words. I don't say words correctly in American.
Well, you were a Whovian before you obtained the role for Blonde or Margaret or whatever?
I knew it, of course, because I'm way back with William Hartnell, was my doctor.
Yeah.
And then into Mr. Troughton, and then I guess I left it. I know Louise Jameson. We were at the RSC together, so whilst she was in the series, I was looking then with Tom, but it was not part of my life before it sort of moved on, when it moved on to some of the other doctors. Peter Davison, who I also know, who killed me off in Miss Marple, in Pocketful of Ryan, Joan Hickson's Miss Marple. And I was in love with Peter Davison, and he killed me and hung me on a washing line.
Oh.
And I know Sylvester, I know from Rep in the middle of England when we were young, so I know a lot of the doctors anyway, but in actual watching terms, I not sort of featured in my life, I guess, since Lou was in it, really. And I do watch it again now, intermittently, not constantly. Mm-hmm. I was very pleased when Peter Capaldi was cast, being an older doctor again, and now a woman, which I think is fabulous. I'm sorry it isn't me. I was hoping Margaret might come back.
I know. You could have been the new doctor.
Well, it's been a constant running thing. Colin Baker was in the role. Was in Doctor Who before he got to the role. Peter Capaldi was in Torchwood and Doctor Who, and then he got the role. So I think it's only fair that somebody who's been in the role prior, somewhere along the way, there wasn't a doctor, should send it. And
well, now the doors are open. Maybe it'll happen.
Exactly. Maybe not 13, maybe 14, 15, 16. There you go. Somewhere along the way. So, yeah. Chris Chibnall, hey, work on that.
Yeah.
Now, here's a funny thing. I don't know the funny, but I found it very interesting that I was watching a particular movie, and I was kicking and screaming because I am a fan of the original Gene Wilder Willy Wonka, and I didn't think anything could substitute it. But somewhere along the way, I was watching, and you could hear me in the theater geeking out, and I think I was the only one when I saw you for your brief moment in it, and I was saying, oh my God, she's in this movie, this is going to be great, and that was it.
Sorry about that. But I loved
That's
it.
not your fault.
Absolutely loved doing it because it was Hollywood. Tim Burton I admire anyway. And it was a glorious... I shot on one night. It was a wonderful August night, beautiful moon. They'd had a wonderful build of the streets. It was at Pinewood. They'd got a whole line of full-size silver birches. The wind machine was enormous at the end of this pretend road, so that you couldn't hear anybody say turning or action, and the thirds had to, do hand signals and everything. There were hundreds of children who'd been individually face painted for Halloween and given their own clothes. And then Tim and I were quite shy with one another, but in the actual working of it, he's really hands-on. So I was holding him on a crate round his waist while he was fiddling with the lights and then saying, she needs more coloured sweets, she needs more sweets in the bowl. And it was just magical. It was genuinely a magical evening. So I'm it is a slither, and it wasn't with Johnny Depp, but the young boy. But I adored it. I loved doing it. And then I met we had a fantastic wrap party, so I did meet Johnny Depp there.
Oh,
now, a lot of the difference when we talk to our friends from the UK, and they've worked on some project in Hollywood here, we always refer to what was like the difference between working in the UK and working in the United States, and all of them can, on a consensus basis, say the food. What was the difference for you working between the two types of different styles, I guess, for a better term, of production?
Because it was at Pinewood, so it was still in the UK. It was still in the UK because it was.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Yes, it was. It was an American unit, though. It was shot at Pinewood, but the thing of the food stands, and there is always food. As soon as you arrive, they want to know what you want in the fridge and what they can bring you. Then, as time gets closer for your scene, you get moved to a tent, and there's more different food, more food. And coffee, and then there's always a snack bar close by. Yeah, generosity of that. I guess money is the really big thing, and that also leads to variety. And I could tell through the day, the food, the dressing room, the consideration for me was actually, though, a part of a process of making me as happy as I could be by the time I got to the set, and therefore would work well on that day. And I think that's part of it too, keep people fed, keep them warm, jolly them along, do what it takes to make them great on the take.
Right.
Or maybe their unions are just stronger and they've made bigger
I think it's the unions.
At the moment, I'm helping a young filmmaker who has no money whatsoever, and he's written a very good script for a feature film. And we're all, there's a number of us pitching in and just doing it, to help him.
Right.
But there, the catering is quite different, and it's his dad, who's really in property but likes to cook. So he provides pasta bakes and croissant, and there was a very good soup the other night when we did a night shoot. So, that's the other end of the spectrum, but done with a great deal of love and, not American budgets at all. But
no. I forgot who we interviewed, Margaret. That was the common denominator between working with the U.S. and the UK. He goes, what's that?
It was the food, yeah.
It was the food, but he was going. I forgot who it was, but he said, well, the difference was really in the U.S. they gave me lunch, and in the UK I had to pay for lunch.
Yes. Well, on some productions you do. In England, you do pay for your own lunch. And also there's a saying, you never know you've got the job until you're in the lunch queue.
Exactly.
Because so many things can go wrong. You think you've got the job and then it falls apart. So there is a saying, you don't know you've got the job till you're in the lunch queue. And certainly I've been on a few productions where you do pay for your lunch. Life is tough. Hours are long. So you can't be bothered at home to be creating something for your lunch the next day. Usually learning the lines and getting to bed.
Yeah,
exactly. I think, Mark, you can, what is it, your third or fourth favorite show is Wizards and Aliens or something
Wizards versus Aliens. So you said that Russell liked you so much he wrote Boomtown. Well, then he created Wizards versus Aliens and put you in that.
I know, and Casanova.
Yeah, you were in Casanova.
Oh, that's right,
yes. You were in the third episode of Casanova you were in. But Wizards versus Aliens, I loved that show. I mean, I loved the Sarah Jane Adventures, which was on first, and then when Elizabeth Sladen died, they kept the same production company, and they made Wizards versus Aliens, and you got to play the grandmother. You played Ursula Crowe.
I did.
And you were playing a goodie.
I was. Ursula, the magical line of Crow. Yeah, with a wonderful god. I thought grandson. I thought the boys were wonderful in that. Percy and Scott did such a fantastic, and of course Gwen Christie's in it, playing one of the aliens, and
of course my favorite voice of the alien, Golden Alive. Brian
that will
Blessed.
be Brian Blessed.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a fun show for children on CBBC, but it was a good show. Can you tell us anything that happened on that show that comes to your mind that you will never forget?
Going to Tibet was quite good, which was a quarry in Pembrokeshire. It was interesting creating that because you always have to be mindful of, as Russell taught me, of the 5-year-old alone on the sofa.
Yes.
And although it was for a slightly older age group, there were things written in that were quite dark. I thought it was wonderful because within the humour and the joy of it, it was helping children understand how to relate to one another or bring up issues that I was told lots of families after it would talk about, well, would you do that to that person? If you had a friend who did that, would you do this? And the morals of things. So there was one episode that was extremely dark, and one of the boys might die if I couldn't save him. And it was written that there was wind blowing through the chamber and the tunnels, and I was, calling up, summoning all these spirits. And Russell was very anxious because that's when he said, you have to think about the 5-year-old alone, and please put some humour in it too, right, because you can't have that person utterly terrified. And I love working in children's drama, which is often decried by my peers. And I've had very famous friends who are happy to be in Harry Potter, but tell me that I shouldn't be in children's television. You should stop doing that. And they think it's a lesser medium. And I don't believe that for a second, because children grow into adults.
Exactly.
If you don't, a quality product, give them something of quality to begin with, then, they're not going to engage with it, and they're not going to grow with storytelling and, into their adult lives. And I also find the people in kids' telly to be very responsible and thoughtful and imaginative, and so that it's just a little example of Russell. You can't just do it as it is on the page, or, you've got to be mindful of many things. I'm actually involved talking about this a campaign in England called Save Kids Content, because we are no longer making so many children's programs, right, and the onus falls on the Beeb to make most of it. But the commercial companies are going, well, we can't advertise soft fizzy drinks, so why should we bother to make a product? So I've been actually spoken in Parliament this year, and Benjamin, who you may know from children's telly, and all of us had tales when there were 4 of us who spoke. We all have experience of adults who've come to us and said, either I ran home from school. I was also in a children's program called Happy Families. I ran home from school every week to see that. And Florella said, when I said hello, she said, I met someone who said to me at the time I was young, my family had, was in a terrible state. I was alone on the sofa. And when you said hello to me, I had a friend. So children's television is terribly, terribly, terribly important. And so Russell's work is fantastic, and he does take care of all of that and has teams around him that, really put the maximum in to making it great for everyone. I'll get off my soapbox now. I just got off.
No, I totally.
I have
hear
to
me
say
putting
that,
the soapbox away.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, because I remember when I was growing up with classic Doctor Who in its final run, that people were running away from it, and today they're running to it. There's like, we all want to be on Doctor Who, and there's no way that you can be an A-lister in the United States without having an episode with Big Bird somewhere along the way. So children's television is not only important, but I think it's very beneficial. And as you said, and I believe, the people who started Doctor Who, right, when you started it, the people who brought it back were fans of the show. If that is a testament to anything that comes up. And what did they do? They tried to bring back people's careers. I mean, they made the classic Who relevant. So those kids grow up and they remember. And they remember what they see.
The doctors they've cast have loved it. It's been part of their, David Tennant. It's been terribly important to them. They, because of course when I joined, they had no idea idea because it was just the beginning of the regeneration. Right. They didn't know if the fans would take to it. They all loved it themselves, but they had absolutely no idea whether it would engage people or not. They hoped it would, but it could have been a disaster. The fans could have gone, no, certainly not. We're just not accepting this. And I know at that time I was jumping about going, I'm going to be in Doctor Who, and other actors kind of going, oh yeah, well, and then now you get Knights of the Realm begging to be in it, but then actors were just going, all right, well, isn't that rather old-fashioned and redundant, and why are you so excited about that?
Speaking about growing up, since me being the youngest of the podcast, I grew up quite recently, and along those lines of growing up, I grew up on Skins. And you was on that, I believe, for the series finale of season 6. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
That was very unexpected. That's the wonderful thing about acting. You get invited into all sorts of worlds you never anticipate. So I'd worked with the director and some of the crew before, and they invited me on, and it was quite brief, but a really pleasurable few days. And often in television, you don't have time to examine the work. On something like a soap, you go on, read the lines, you stand up, it's multi-camera, you get it done as fast as you possibly can. But with Skins, time was taken, and the engagement with the young adults, and it was a really sort of in-depth few days, which I relish.
Now, going from children's television, let's move away, because recently you did something that I would call more adult in nature. My girlfriend would kill me if I didn't bring this up. Outlander. Yeah. Oh, that's a great show, and you were great on it. Yeah.
Oh, I love Outlander.
Tell us
and it's not
just
because of Sam Heughan.
Oh, yes, that's what she'd say.
I was really lucky. I loved playing Mrs. Fitz. Katrina Balfe was very good to work with. And again, I was in at the beginning. When I joined, there was only Sam and Tobias and myself were the only 3 cast. So I went up to Scotland for a costume fitting, and Sam walked in the room. And he took my breath away, not because he's such an attractive man, but because he was such a nice man and a polite man, and had no, wasn't arrogant. He just came and shook my hand, and it just was very refreshing to not have an enormous kind of ego going, don't you think I'm wonderful, behind all of that. So that was my first encounter. And then Kat and I, we did some rehearsals, and things like the dressing scene we actually did in real time. And Terry Dresbach, the costume designer, is fabulous and thorough. So it took a long time because, you've got 2 petticoats, 2 bum rolls, woolen mittens, a corset, a skirt, and your pockets are separate from your skirt, so they go on a string around your waist. So it took me a long time to dress Kat, and the director, we closed the set, we had a closed set,
right, and
he allowed us the time to dress her. But of course, most of the crew wondered what the hell was going on, because it was a closed set and took about 20 minutes or something. It's an enormously long process. So things like that are to be relished. And I actually sang to her I found an old Scots ballad and was singing to absolutely of the period, but it isn't in there. But I guess that's probably either that it wouldn't edit with the cuts in between putting different articles of clothing on, maybe the cut didn't work, right, or my singing is so atrocious that they thought we can't have that. But yeah, Mrs. Fitz was just a fab character, sort of strong and heartwarming, and we really, all of us, got on. And I think that's something too to do with Ron D. Moore, who's the producer. Yeah. Who, of course, chose us all. And it's a great credit to him that he pulled a company together that really felt like a company and worked very well together. And we're all still, again, we're a bit like EastEnders. We still keep in touch and know about one another's lives. And it's fantastic.
Christian, do you imagine us after Mark Who 42 ends that we'd still, all of us, communicate and get together and have dinner?
No, I want nothing to do with you after this show.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it's not going to work.
So done with you.
It's not going to work, man. It doesn't work for Mark Who 42.
How long have you been together?
We've been doing this show for 5 years. This is the This week is actually the 5th anniversary of our first episode of this version of the podcast, and of course, it's our 200th episode.
And then this year, as a gift, I kind of think of a 5th birthday to us. I know it's gloating, but we landed on iHeartRadio, which only 5 or 6 other Doctor Who podcasts have made it through that hoop over the millions that are out there. So anytime I hear somebody say, "Oh, Taylor Swift, oh, the iHeart Party, oh, this," I'm like, yeah, we're part of that now.
That's my team.
Yeah. But we feel like the distant cousins because we're not invited to those parties. I don't know about those parties. We know.
I hope you get a goodie bag. I hope you send
a goodie bag. Gift card, something. Make me feel
something. I want my Starbucks card. Okay.
No, you don't, do you?
No, I don't get anything. Annette, coming this Christmas, you've got a special movie coming out on TV all around the world. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, The Man Who Invented Christmas. I got to work with Christopher Plummer. Oh, I'm a little bit in love. I knew Dan Stevens is in it. It's the creating of Christmas Carol, and I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it really, but I know the trailers are going out, and Dickens struggling with it and not being able to write it. And it's a film of 2 parts really, because it's a section of it's really about his home life and his family, and then trying to create this novel and not finding it easy. And I'm Mrs. Fezziwig, and some of the characters inhabit his real life, I guess, all I should say, really.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a spoiler, but I know Dan Stevens is playing Charles Dickens, but Simon Callow is in this too, and he is the Charles Dickens. So, I mean, is he playing him as an older man in this, or is that something you're not allowed to divulge? Because I don't know if they're listing him as Charles Dickens.
Right. I'm not going to tell you.
All right.
You have to go and see it. But also, Miriam Margolyes is in it.
Oh.
Who is also a huge Dickensian. I mean, she has had her own one-woman show, and so, great authority there in the film. Jonathan Pryce is in it.
Jonathan Pryce, Bill Patterson.
Yeah.
Big Niece, yeah.
Yes.
Big names.
Yes, but Christopher...
And the biggest name, Annette Badland.
Yeah.
She's in it.
Well, maybe the longest.
She's going to star. She's going to star in this.
Big name.
Yeah.
But yes, it happened just after I finished EastEnders, which was at the beginning of December last year, and I'd already worked with the producer, and they invited me, and we didn't know if it would work to begin with, and then we could make it happen. So off I scooted to Dublin. We shot it in Dublin, which has the most wonderful Georgian streets. I mean, the city is just fantastic. And went out pre-Christmas and had a lot of fun for a couple of weeks, and got back the day before Christmas Eve.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of dancing and laughter. And as I say, falling in love with Christopher Plummer, who then had a naughty twinkle in his eye, as much to say, well, you're not the first, because I was saying, well, what am I going to do now? I've got to go back. And he kind of looked at me as much to say, well, just get in line.
Oh, my God.
Oh, Christopher.
Live with it.
Jeez. When you grow up.
There's a fabulous restaurant there called the Trocadero, which is an old very red plush post-theatre restaurant, a little bit like Rules in England. And so he introduced me to that. He loved it so much. So a lot of us, started eating there. And it has a wonderful atmosphere. It's fantastic. So if you're ever in Dublin, go to the Trocadero.
All right, will do.
One of the things I just found interesting is, of all the monsters in the classic series, we have Daleks, and their war cry is, exterminate. The Cybermen had excellent, and now today they have delete. We have all these recognizable monsters. Now in the first season, when the show comes back, we have the Slovene, and they have something different.
Oh, there I go.
And me! I'm shaking my booty.
When you got this role,
yeah, the catchphrase that spells.
It's not really a catchphrase. It's the breaking of the wind type deal. We're going to be taking on this alien, and this is what they did. How did you react to that? What was your what?
It's very British humour, isn't it?
Very American humor too. So I was like,
flatulence is a great thing in British humour.
Oh, believe me, everything's a fart joke here. At least every other sentence in the comedy is a fart.
See, Americans say fart. In England, they say flatulence. I like it better. It sounds nicer.
That's only me being delicate. I can say fart too.
Okay, as long as we're all on the same page here, that's good. Right.
Yeah, I liked lines I had like dinner in bondage works for me, which was nothing to do with that. And I'm shaking my booty and stuff like that, which after the flatulence, after the farting, is probably quite a good idea to shake your booty.
Yeah.
Get the air moving a bit. That's because we were... we were enormous creatures inhabiting human bodies, so we were a little bit bulky inside their frames, hence the farting.
Yes.
I'm only saying this because it's the most interesting of all the aliens. It's the most fun of all the aliens I could think of, and I could just see the three of you getting together and going, okay, what do we do next? What do I say here? Is this really Doctor Who?
Somewhere I have a drawing that Russell did for me that is a little cartoon of them, because he wanted them very much to have that baby face, to have an innocent...
Right.
Kind of babyish face, and then all this awfulness happening. So, it's like little babies, isn't it? Sort of no holes barred, everything.
I think
everything going on.
I think the most feels in Doctor Who that I've ever felt was that one scene where you were in the bathroom. Well, your character was in the bathroom, and the girl is talking outside about her baby, and for the first time, you've really just felt sorry for Blonde. You're just like, you don't know if she's playing a role or if she's really feeling this.
I think she really feels she's isolated and alone.
Right.
And that was the great, that's what Russell can do. Within a line, he can have, pathos and humor. Within a single line, you can twist.
Right.
And of course, she was the first person who'd ever confronted the Doctor too, and his own morals and his own standard, that restaurant scene. She was the first person to challenge him on where he stood and what he was about and how morally good he was. And I thought Chris was fantastic because, Chris, I felt for the first time you had an alien too. He wasn't a nice uncle figure. No. There was something cold and alien about him. He wasn't a human being.
Not only that, he's war-torn, so he's got damaged. For the first time in his life, he has a bigger damage roll, and that actually became a very good weapon for Blonde to have against him. But you couldn't tell if she had, that one scene. I was like, is she really, really sad, or is she just using this, or what? But that seems to be the contradiction of Blonde. And as far as what a great character you gave her to see the difference between, and at the end she finally says thank you. I finally got this straightened out. Thank you. This is what I needed.
Yeah.
So,
and great to end up as an egg with potential.
Exactly.
A little Rasta hairdo.
I did see that. Like, yeah.
So we're at the part of the show where we give our guest the opportunity to plug away and announce what's coming up in their lives, what they're going to be doing, and what we'll be able to see them in. Now, we've talked about who invented Christmas. Is there anything else? I know you've got Midsummer Murders.
Yeah, Midsummer Murders that won't start here till May, so I don't know when you'll see it.
I'll see it in May. I don't know about everyone else in the United States. I'll see it in May. I'm just saying.
You're one of those naughty.
I'm not naughty. Something else,
been over in Bulgaria. I went to Sofia. I don't know if you get it. Well, you'll get it. A series called Plebs, which is a sitcom, which is three guys who... it's very modern, but it's set in ancient Rome. Mm-hmm. So I went across to be a guest in that for a week last week. So that's called Plebs. So that'll be out next year. I'm not sure. There's stuff that I've done that will only, I imagine, go out in England. A children's series called The Dumping Ground, which is very good, but I don't think you'll see that. So I think that's it for the moment. Yeah, I think so.
There is something else coming up.
Next week, I'm going to Time Lash next weekend in Germany. I shan't be at Anglicon this year, but maybe in a future year, I'd love to go back to Seattle. It'd be fantastic.
We'd love you to come to Florida.
We'd love you to come to Florida where we are.
No, just ask.
We'll get our...
okay, I'm asking.
Come on. I mean, we're not convention runners, but we're still asking.
Yeah. Are you all right now? Is Florida okay? And
yeah. The hurricane it's gone. Yeah. I mean, Ireland had that storm.
Yes, Ophelia. Yeah, we're being a little bit, because I'm in the south of England at the moment, and we're being a wee bit battered by someone called Brian.
Yes. My sister told me about that yesterday. Yeah.
But really, it's nothing awful here anyway.
Yeah, but no, we've recovered in Florida pretty much.
Good.
We try to stay resilient. You know, hurricanes hit us every year, and we.
Yeah. I know, but even so, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough.
Now you're supporting a Kickstarter called Anglicon: The TARDIS Interactive Console Project.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that, because they're actually looking for $5,000,
and they've done very well, haven't they?
Yeah, they're almost at $4,000.
Yeah, I know Peter Davison again's involved. Lots of us they want an interactive console. You know, it's a great thing to do, isn't it? To have something that's so alive and immediate, and it will be great fun for the fans, and I just hope it works out, and I think it's going to. I can't remember the dates of Anglicon. It's coming up next month, is it?
Next month, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's on the other side of the planet, so we won't be there.
Just like England's on the other side of the planet, so is the west coast of the United States, really. I mean,
yes, I know. It's nothing. It's a stride.
Everybody thinks it's a short distance. Everybody, like, let's say one of our friends says, "Oh, we'll be in Miami next month. Can you come down?" I said, "Miami is about 5 hours away from here."
Yeah, I mean, right. To get from where I am,
it looks
Florida,
like a small state on the map, but it's really not there.
To get where I am in Florida to the next state, we're talking at least an 11 or 12 hour ride. So, it is pretty far for me, Anglicon.
But you're used to that sort of thing. Well, that's what long distances,
Yeah, we do. Yeah, so I can't make excuses. I know I'm going to Gallifrey in February. That's in L.A., so I could go to Anglicon. Yeah. Maybe I'll go to Anglicon. I don't know. It's coming up. If I can get time off from work, maybe I'll buy a ticket. Because I know you were there a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh, I totally want to go and be on the EastEnder panel. I totally wanted to do
that. That's the wrong reason for going.
I know. Well, I would go for Doctor Who too, but the EastEnder panel. No, your character was so evil, yet you had a reason. You had a reason for being the way you were. How Babe was. There was a reason you were in love, and it didn't happen, and you just, instead of when it happened, getting upset, you kind of held it in, and then you kind of were passive aggressive, and then you kind of get further than that. So, yeah.
I always, of late, well, not all the time, but I've played quite a few villainous folk, but I think I have to find a reason why they are as they are, and I suppose somewhere I can't believe that people are born that evil. Maybe some are, I don't know, but I think we all have reasons for turning out the way we are, and yes, she'd never, ever, ever, ever been loved, not simply finding love from a man,
true.
but I think her home life, she wasn't loved by anyone, ever. And she's always she's the aunt, not the mother. She's always subsidiary. She's never in the centre of things. She wants desperately to be at the heart of things, and she never was. And as you say, rather than working it out and letting it go, she let that fester and fester and fester inside her, and it makes her vengeful, and she'll give you everything, but then if you cross her, or if she perceives that it's, she's not getting the love back, then it becomes vengeful and very unpleasant.
Since I don't want you to fester, do you have any words to tell Sean O'Connor right now on our program? Because I am so upset, because I didn't realize that it wasn't you wanting to leave the show. It was this new executive producer coming on the show, kind of telling you, we're going a different way. I am not happy with that.
Well, in fairness to him, he did say it was au revoir and not goodbye.
Well, that's true. You were not killed off.
No, and he actually did talk about, coming back in a sort of revenge.
Oh.
But, that could be in 20 years' time, and I might be, I don't know.
And it could be like Michelle and Martin being totally recast.
Or being killed off.
Den. Den got killed off twice, so you have a chance.
This is always off. But I think it's inevitable with a new exec that they will want to do their own work and stories. And, actually, though, Babe's curse has come true, hasn't it? She cursed them as she left.
Yeah.
Vic. And, now they're losing the Vic, and it's all gone horribly wrong. So never cross her. She obviously has an influence even when she's not there.
Annette, we want to thank you so much for being on our 200th episode. We never even thought we would cross this finish line. We thought we'd trip and fall like, episode 5. So,
hey, you said you bet 96.
I was even on the show for episode 5, so it's all right.
You're still fooling them. They haven't realized yet.
Annette, where could people find you? Because I know we've spoken on Facebook together, but where else can people find you and follow up with you just to see your new project?
Annette Badland 1 at Twitter, on Twitter. Twitter.com. I do Facebook. Those are the only 2 social media things I do. Okay. Facebook, I tend to only befriend the folk I know. So, if they'd send a friend request there, I'm likely not to respond, but will on Twitter.
Okay.
I just try and keep bits of my life separate, so...
Oh, that's understandable.
Yeah.
We have friends that have done that. Although I think I started early and he's gone like, what's this doofus kid with a radio show? Okay, I'll like him.
I just followed you on Twitter just
friends.
But I might like them, but I might not be friends.
There you go. So, Annette, thank you so much.
Oh, no, my pleasure. I wish you all very well. And here's to the 400th.
Yes. We'll be 50 by then.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with being 50. I think I'm there already, Christian.
Yeah, you are.
I am.
This portion of Mark Who 42 has been brought to you by Harley Quinn Cosplay and Crafts. You can go to our site right now, markwho42.net, and click on her icon. Make sure to use promo code MarkWho42 for free shipping of any of her cosplay images and merchandise. And you will see Amelia Poole. Yeah, that's her real name. Amelia Poole, who runs the site. She's going to be at a lot of other conventions coming up on the Space Coast. She usually hangs around there in Central Florida. Gorgeous woman. Absolutely gorgeous. You got to see her Harley Quinn cosplay. You got to see her Dana from Ghostbusters. I mean, just a beautiful woman on that. And she actually does some crafts, including, I guess, what they call the Cobb hat, the Firefly hat that Jane Cobb uses.
Right.
She's got merchandise up there. Check it out. Tell her once you see her anywhere, Mark Who 42 sent you.
Don't go away. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
Hey, Mark, are you busy?
Well, I'm kind of doing my podcast right now, honey.
I want to show you this website. I saw these cool things at Florida SuperCon, and the website is www.drwhocrystals.com. You know my birthday's coming up.
It is. Let me type that up right now.
So do you see this? They are laser engraved crystals with pictures of the Doctor in the TARDIS. I want one for the living room. I've always wanted to have a TARDIS in the living room, but I've always been afraid that it's going to look like a,
But, these look really good. I mean, they're 100% crystal, and it looks like Peter Capaldi. And I know that at Florida SuperCon, these guys, because I did meet them, and these guys got the rights to Peter Capaldi's likeness. They've had the likeness of the first and second Doctor. They've made them. Really want one of these?
Yeah, I've heard that they work closely with the BBC to get the pictures just right, and we really have to order one. It only weighs about 3 pounds. It's a real thing of beauty, okay? It looks elegant, and you have to check it out. Their website is www.drwhocrystals.com, and they are so affordable, Mark, that I want one for my birthday. And then, in a couple of months, the holidays are coming up. Get one for me then, too.
You got it, hon.
The voice of Christian Basil, take 1.
Hi, I'm Christian Basil, and I would like to provide my voice for all your voiceover needs, such as...
Okay, like an announcer.
Like a what?
Like an announcer.
For all your voiceover needs, such as animation, radio, announcements, introductions...
Now an old man.
I can even record voicemail for all the Meshuggahs that call you.
A pirate.
Arr, and it won't cost you a lot of treasure for me services. Arr.
Creepy movie voice.
Just call 407-761-2679. 407-761-2679. Or email voiceofchristianbasil@yahoo.com. Well, how was that?
That's a wrap.
Hello, this is Sylvester McCoy, Doctor Who number 7. On Mark Who 42. What on earth is that? I've no idea, really. All these numbers.
Welcome back to more of Mark Who 42 on Krypton Radio. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and it's time once again for Who's Listening? With Christopher Baggott and myself. Chris, how's it going?
It's going excellent.
So, talking about Doctor Who and Big Finish is what we do. We talk about other things too, but mostly Big Finish in the Who's Listening segment. And last time we were talking about the 230th ongoing episode of the main line of Big Finish called Time in Office, starring Peter Davison, Louise Jameson, and Janet Fielding. And we covered the first disc of this anthology with the first 2 stories. And I thought, what better way to keep this going is to talk about the next disc, the episodes 3 and 4 of Time in Office. Now, just to get you into the right place, the 5th Doctor is now president of Gallifrey and is in office, so he's actually on Gallifrey. It's a great prequel to the Gallifrey series, if you ever want to listen to those, with Romana as the president. But let's get back to episode 3. And what was the 3rd episode of Time in Office?
History repeating.
Okay.
Now, in this one, we start off, Tegan and the Doctor are talking about him trying to find a replacement to be president. There's a funny moment in the very beginning where it's actually like the very first line. Tegan comes in and says, "Where did that massive portrait of you come from?" Because he's had his presidential portrait done. And he says, I don't really like it. If they'd have consulted me, I'd have had John Singer Sargent do it. He did a very good job last time, but that was 2 generations ago. So he's trying to come up with a way to pick the next president. But while he's doing that, he's trying to fix all sorts of legislative things in Gallifrey. He asked Tegan, what would you do if you were suddenly made president of Earth? And Tegan's like, well, I'd close the gender pay gap, revise Aboriginal land rights, and force my ex-boyfriend Scott to admit he had a thing with my cousin that summer.
Sounds like Tegan.
Sounds so much like Tegan.
Yeah.
And one must remember at this point, she's still ambassador.
From Earth, yes.
Yes, she's Earth's ambassador to Gallifrey, despite the fact that they don't have any relations between the 2 planets. Anyway, there's a student at the Academy at this point named Figax, who has a plan to flood the Academy as a protest against the older Time Lords and their stagnation of their society. he seems to not have really been paying attention to what the doctor has been doing since he's been put in office, because the doctor is trying to end all the same things that this Figax guy dislikes.
Right.
So the doctor heads to the academy to give a speech because, as he stated in his inaugural address, he's about to split the academy into different academies, one for each chapter of the Gallifreyan houses. Well, while giving this speech, they determine that there is someone who's trying to, attack the academy, although they don't know exactly who or why. I'm not going to even get into how they figured that out. Time Lord technology. So he's supposed to be heading to this reception hosted by I think it was an architecture professor, but don't hold me to that. And it was actually one of the doctor's professors when he was in school, who he got in trouble with because he had rewired a food machine so that instead of dispensing soup, it dispensed, well, they never told us. But whatever it is, it made the academy shut down for like several months. So use your imagination. Anyway, while he is headed to this reception, Figax shows up with a weapon. And turns out it's something he calls a temporal drill. Huh. Unfortunately, Figax is not a very good Time Lord, and he hasn't made it right. He's trying to use this temporal drill to drill a hole through time to the lake that the Academy was originally built on top of to cause that lake to flood the Academy.
Right.
Unfortunately, he screwed it up. So the doctor gets his hands on the temporal drill, and of course the very first thing he does is he fixes it. And then he hands it back to Figax. So basically this whole part of the anthology is basically about the younger Time Lords trying to come to terms with the older parts of their society and how the Doctor is trying to bring these two different segments of Gallifreyan society together.
Gotcha. It's kind of like that Star Trek Next Generation episode where they focus on the young crew members or something. I think it was from season 7. I'm trying to remember what episode that was. But anyway,
I vaguely remember what you're talking about.
I digress.
So eventually, after this whole thing happens, Tegan meets a Time Lord called Scandrus, who it turns out is like the Doctor's biggest fan. Scandrus steals a TARDIS and takes Tegan with him on an adventure because she has gotten bored hanging around on Gallifrey. So she heads off with him. Right. There's a line where Scandrus says, "Freedom! I've never traveled so far before, but instead I'm out here with a real, living, breathing alien." And Tegan gets pissed. He had convinced her that what they were doing was going for a drink on some other planet. Turns out he's trying to start a series of adventures like the Doctor's. And as Tegan eventually says, I don't mind traveling with the Doctor, but I'm not traveling with his fanboy.
Okay, so is Big Finish planning Scandrius, the new series?
No,
they're not.
Scandrius is just a little bit of an aside there.
I was hoping we'd have a new series that we'd have to spend more money on. I'm sorry, Big Finish. You may have a lot of stuff, and it just costs so much. It costs when you buy everything, because I try to get all I can get, and my paycheck is gone.
Oh, dude, tell me about it. There's a reason why I can't follow the Fourth Doctor adventures. I spend too much money on all the other stuff. We'll cover the David Warner adventures.
Well, all the time, I did.
Scandrius is just kind of a little bit of an aside joke sort of situation.
Yes.
And eventually, the Doctor even goes back to the, following the whole thing with Scandrius, we get back to a sequence with the Doctor where it turns out that we actually get to go back to the Doctor's old room at the Academy.
Oh.
Which has apparently been kept exactly the same because the Doctor, while he was at the Academy, screwed up a temporal stasis experiment, and the room has not been able to be changed in several hundred years.
Would that make the room smell bad, or is it pristinely the same, exactly the same, so it's like stuck in time and there's no dust and there's no
dust, there's no nothing. It is exactly the same as how the Doctor left it, right down to clothes on the ground and open textbooks.
Gotcha. And the room smells all right. I mean,
they don't mention the smell, but if you've ever smelled a college student's room,
see, that's where I'm kind of going. I don't know if I want to spend part of the story there. No.
Anyone who's ever smelled a college dormitory, just use your imagination.
I don't have to. I had a college dormitory, and yeah.
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. No, Tegan does mention that it smells minty.
Oh, it smells minty. Minty fresh. Oh, well, see, if my dorm room smelled minty fresh, I would have been happy to be there.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. I've gotten mixed up in my notes. Oh. That was the planet she and Scandrus went to, which it turns out was a planet made out of toothpaste.
Oh, hey, I have no idea what to say now. I'm totally flabbergasted. I gotta listen to this.
Yes, a planet made out of toothpaste. Well,
the planet Crest, basically.
Let me see if I have a name written down. I don't think there's a name.
We're just going to call it the planet Crest. I like the planet Crest. I don't care if there's a name.
Yeah, but Scandrius doesn't know what toothpaste is, by the way.
And that explains a lot about Time Lord's teeth.
Mm-hmm. Also, there are a couple references here and there throughout the episode to the fact that K9 should be around, but they explain that the K9 that Leela had, K9, is that K9 Mark 1?
K9 Mark 1 is with Leela, K9 Mark 2 is with Romana, K9 Mark 3 and 4 is with Sarah.
I thought K9 Mark 4 was the one in Australia.
Well, but think about it. Okay, so 3 and 5 are Sarah Jane's? Because he gave her a new canine, so I thought that was 4. But you're right, the canine in Australia, but that's actually, the canine in Australia, the TV series in Australia, but that takes place in England, does regenerate.
Yeah, so he could be any of the older ones.
Okay, so it could be any of them.
Regardless.
We're getting canined out here. Let's get back.
The point is, they say that K9 Mark 1 is off with Romana and K9 Mark 2 on some adventure.
Okay.
So, as an explanation as to why John Leeson isn't in the episode.
They just couldn't be, with the amount of people in this cast, they just couldn't pay him.
Oh, no, they definitely couldn't. They just were doing too much.
Yeah.
Scandrius and Tegan go through a whole series of conversations about how he wants to go to Earth to see the alien civilization, and then she says how she doesn't really want to Here's what she says. Then you want to travel the universe. And Tegan writes, says, yes, but I want to do it with the real thing, the Doctor, not his tribute act.
That hurts, Scandrius, man. That's bad. That's cool.
Anyway,
Gold
so the
has minty mouthwash that you can get at your local Planet Crest.
At least it wasn't Planet Listerine.
Yeah. Planet Listerine. Oh, that would sting.
As I understand it, the Fourth Doctor Adventures just recently had the Doctor encounter a planet that was made entirely of liquid.
But as long as it wasn't Listerine, because, again, sting.
Yeah. Anyway,
the Doctor got the police. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's move on.
That was a deep cut.
It was a very deep cut. So this sounds like a really cool episode. What happens in the final episode of Time in Office?
So we come to the final bit of this anthology called Architect of Destruction. Now, in this one, they were getting ready to build, using block transfer computation, a new Capitol building.
Oh.
To replace the old one. The old Capitol was destroyed and they built a temporary one, which is the one that we've seen in most episodes of the original series.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're getting ready to build a new one using block transfer computation, just like they did in Logopolis.
Yay! Or rather, boo, Adric. Okay, anyway.
Everybody has a thing against Adric.
I just, when that final scene, when the credits were rolling and there was silence, I re-edited it with put on a happy face. I'm just sick that way, I guess. The Doctor is his youngest companion, and they kill him, and I'm just like, yay!
I don't know. Wouldn't the kids from Sarah Jane be his youngest companions?
And there you go. Okay. We were talking classic series, but okay, you're right, yes.
Any rate.
Ronnie was the youngest. No, I don't know if Ronnie was the youngest, but okay.
Actually, technically, Luke would be the youngest.
Luke was only a couple of months or years old, yeah, because they cloned him. Right, you're right. Okay.
Now, we're going totally off topic.
Off topic. Let's go back to
that new show with the kid that plays Luke in it. I'm actually kind of the Good Doctor.
Victoria is great. Victoria is a great show with Jenna Coleman. I love him on that.
Well, he's in this new show that's starting called The Good Doctor, where he plays an autistic doctor, which I am personally making as that's what Luke Smith did afterwards.
Okay. Okay. I hadn't heard of this, but okay. So back to Architect of Destruction.
So they're getting ready to build this new Capitol building. And they've been on Gallifrey now a couple weeks, possibly a couple months. It's very unclear as to how long they're there.
So Turlo has been in the TARDIS by himself for...
the whole time.
Oh, this is sad.
I know. The entire time I'm listening to this anthology.
And he's not really alone because he's there with Chameleon.
Exactly. So at least he has someone to talk to. And let's remember, Turlough does know how to use the TARDIS console, so at least he has... He kind of has a little bit of knowledge of the TARDIS console. Maybe he could probably play a video game.
He could play a video game. Chameleon could help him play a video game on the TARDIS console.
So, I mean, seriously, throughout this entire anthology, I was thinking to myself, what the hell is Turlough doing? But at any rate, apparently Tegan's been walking past this building site this whole time, and there's been nothing happening, no attempt to build anything, and then randomly one day, bam, the new capital is there. She doesn't really understand block transfer computation, despite the fact that she should.
Yeah.
He tries to explain it to her, but she gets it about as well as Tegan gets anything. And then we get into he's about to go to the investment ceremony for it. And she starts talking about how he looks very dignified. And the doctor goes, no, I don't. And Leela says, what's that around your neck? The sash of Rassilon. I also hold the staff of Rassilon. Not to be confused with the rod of Rassilon, the coronet of Rassilon, the thimble of Rassilon. And Tegan goes, is that a belt? The belt of Rassilon? No, this is the belt of Omega. There's a lot of funny little moments like that in here. Then, they make this conversation. The doctor says, I'm on my way to the investment ceremony. Are you two coming? And Tegan's like, only if I don't have to wear Rassilon's hand-me-downs. So they meet the architect of the new Capitol building, and they start taking a tour of it. And apparently there's been a labor dispute among the Shibogans. And the doctor, because of how they've used the block transfer computation, the Shibogans are kind of upset because they should have been allowed to be in to help build the new capital.
Right.
But since they used straight block transfer, they didn't need any help. It just managed to magically appear, basically. Yeah. So there's this whole background thing between the two parts of the society. And eventually, they say the doctor's going to have to figure out what the problem is and fix it. But he has to go to this ceremonial dinner with his chancellor, Verena, and with the architect of the new Capitol building. Well, following a series of, usual Doctor Who type things, turns out the new Capitol building is actually a massive TARDIS.
Ah.
Mm-hmm. And while they are inside, a group of separatists, I guess you'd call them, manages to make the TARDIS Capitol dematerialize.
Uh-oh.
With the Doctor inside. Now, because it is so big, it does not dematerialize instantaneously. It takes several minutes to do so. While it is dematerializing, Tegan and the architect manage to escape and explain what's going on to the people outside.
Right.
And it turns out, and this is pretty much as far as I'm going to go, because after this we get into some major spoilers. But it turns out that the labor dispute between the Shibogans and the Time Lords is at the heart of the problem with this new capital. And basically the whole story is about trying to figure out what's wrong with the capital and how to fix it.
Well, I want to thank you, Christopher Baggott, for doing the Who's Listening. It was an idea that I had that we should start reviewing Big Finish, and I thought that you were the perfect one to do it, having printed some of your reviews on our website, markwho42.net. You seem to have Big Finish under in your head. I mean, you totally can explain it away, and I want to thank you for being part of our 200th episode. This is our 200th episode of Mark Who 42.
Oh, wow. I feel very honored to be a part of it.
So until next time, we'll have more Who's Listening, because we're listening, that's who, on Mark Who 42. We'll be right back after this.
Don't go away. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
Mark Who 42 is proud to have Famous Faces and Funnies. This is a huge, mega comic book store. I mean, they just have literally tons and tons of comic books, novelties, everything. They're located off of 3020 New Haven Avenue in West Melbourne. And if you want to give them a call and just let them know Mark Who 42 sent you, it's 321-259-3575. But this thing is just a huge, I mean, you've seen comic book stores and nothing against them, but you've seen them, these tiny little shops, and they have comic books and they have merchandise and memorabilia and such like that. This place is like the best term I can put is the Costco of comic book shops. So you go from one store and there's another section And it is just huge. They have Funkos. They have tons and tons and tons of stuff in there. I mean, it's hard to explain. But if you have any geekdom out there, Famous Faces and Funnies have got it covered for you, from Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, everything. And also Rick is the guy who runs it, and all the team over there, nice, friendly people. Definitely want to check out our friends at Famous Faces and Funnies in the West Melbourne area if you're out there.
Hello, I'm Nicholas Briggs, the voice of many monsters on Doctor Who, and executive producer of Big Finish Productions. And I'm pleased to announce that Mark Who 42 Books have joined forces with Big Finish to bring you Big Finish Audio.
There's this fella who calls himself the Doctor, and he says he has saved me, and we are in his time machine.
You all right? I think I've broken something. What about you?
Yes, I'm fine, thanks.
I rather think I broke your fall.
Oh, sorry.
Mark Who 42 Books will now offer to bring you the best in Big Finish audio.
But why are they here?
How do you do?
I beg your pardon?
Oh, no need to. I'm the Doctor, and this is...
I am Leela.
By all means, please do come out to play, Doctor. I'm waiting for you.
To find where Mark Who 42 Books will be, go to markwho42.net or on their Facebook site at markwho42.
What are you saying? They fizzled in somehow, like the TARDIS?
Yeah, transmat from another dimension. The TARDIS doesn't fizzle. It's more of a...
Also go to markwho42.net and download my interview with the team.
You're executive producer at Big Finish Productions.
Correct.
Correct.
Is this a quiz?
Mark Who 42, taking you to the Whoniverse and beyond.
Hello, this is Peter Davison, and you're listening to Mark Who 42.
Welcome back to Mark Who 42. We have Trish Helm on the show, and we have Iggy, of course, Iggy Matthews.
Yeah.
And I'm Mark Baumgarten, just to throw our names out. We have Trish on the show, and it is episode 200, the 5th anniversary of the show. I thought we'd talk a little about the origins of Mark Who 42. So we became Facebook friends because we both like Doctor Who. Is that right, Trish?
Yes. Yeah. I was a newbie. I had just discovered Doctor Who, and I was trying to find other people to talk to about it because where I live in Reno, Nevada, at the time there was absolutely nobody that I knew of that had even heard of Doctor Who. And so I turned to Facebook, try to find some, friends, some people that knew what I was talking about.
And she definitely was posting some very funny... I think, were they called memes back then? I don't even know if they were always called memes.
I don't even know.
Funny pictures.
You're posting some really cool things, and we got to talking and private messaging and all that stuff, and we kind of came up with an idea for a website or a Facebook page called Mark Who 42 and Torrid Tory, was it? Was that what it was?
I think so, yes.
So. Now, tell them about the origins of Torrid Tory, because it's an interesting story.
Okay. How explicit can we be? I'm kidding.
See, that's the funny thing about Mark Who 42, because it started as a not safe for work, very, very highly sexually charged site where
we were really frustrated. Okay,
we posted the Katie Manning pictures. We posted pictures from all different things. The David Tennant with his 10-inch Wonder. Can we say that? I don't know. On stage, as a policeman, but not wearing clothes except for his police hat. And Matt Smith, I think we put a picture of Matt Smith up at some point. And we opened up a Tumblr page because Tumblr back then was Facebook with porn, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
so we
had,
and we actually reviewed a porn called
my God,
Dr. Lou and the Day of the Phalanx, or something. Dr. Who and the Phalanx. And oh my God, that was
so
review,
bad.
That was so bad. The review never got published. Thank God, but because it would have been. Well, actually, I think the title of the second episode that they gave at the end was the only joke that was funny, because it was supposed to be a parody, and it was not funny. It was not funny. But
I'm here to fix your talk. Oh yes. Oh yes.
No, it was like instead of exterminate, it was inseminate.
Inseminate.
Yeah.
Inseminate.
Impregnate.
That would have worked too.
Yeah.
That would have worked too.
Yeah.
But Tori.
On the end of their little stock was not a suction cup.
Yeah, and we can leave that to their imagination on this family-friendly show. But Tori, because Susan in the first episode of Doctor Who ever said she came up with the name TARDIS, we thought, okay, yes, Susan came up with the name TARDIS, so these aren't TARDISes that we keep popping up, and they had to have a different name, and she just called the Doctor's one a TARDIS. And so I think that's where we came up with Torrid, which you came up with this great acronym that I cannot for the life of me remember. Temporal...
Oh my God! It was good.
It was really, really good. A really
But
good
it's for the history books now.
For the history books, you could probably find it if you go back on the Mark Who 42 Facebook page and scroll back far into 2012's stuff.
To before the beginning.
Yeah, but because they had the episode with Idris, we thought, okay, let's give the Torrid a human, or at least a humanoid counterpart, a voice, and that was Torrid Tori. Tori was her name, and you were Tori.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I was Mark Who 42, the Time Lord, and we traveled around for adventure in the Torrid. And there are a lot of things we can't talk about what Mark Who 42 made Time Lord special on a family-friendly show, but believe me, three's a charm.
I know. I just remember you, having to go and spend like so much time editing the shows and putting in sound effects and this like that, and it was like it took a ridiculous amount of time.
Oh, they can. Okay. You're talking about the radio show. Yeah, because we did do a show before Mark Who 42 called the Mark Who 42 and Tori podcast. Yeah. And we'll talk about that. But the site was going crazy. We had Doctor Who writers from the books joining our site. I'm going to be name dropped. David A. McAtee was one of our followers. But anyway, we kind of realized, okay, this sex thing, it's cool, it's fun, but it's not going to last. It's not going to work. So we kind of tooled it down and we decided, hey, let's do a podcast. So we came up with that podcast. And the podcast was basically an improv show where we would play the characters that we came up with on the Facebook page. But non-sexual.
I'm actually really super upset that I wasn't around for when this little idea was popping up. It would have been so bad. Oh my God.
It would have been.
You can listen to two of the episodes put together. If you go to iTunes or any of the podcast sites that hold our show, between episodes, I think 5 and 6, there's a bonus episode where you can hear episodes 2 and 3, because it was a two-parter, right around the time of there was a hurricane that was coming towards Miami. And Trisha's in Nevada, so we do this whole thing. This is a long-distance show, and we did it, and I think we introduced Ed into episode 2. So Ed came into the show, your new husband, after we had started.
Yeah, I remember you saying we needed a third person.
Yeah,
we needed someone else, and you're like, I know this guy that I met down here at a Doctor Who convention. Let me see if he wants to do it.
And so it's my fault that they're married, folks. Just to let you know that it's all my fault. Anything bad happens, you can find me and arrest me and send me to jail.
No, I just think it's really funny how. I can just see Trish looking at this Latino spice and thunder. Ooh.
Wasn't really like that when he
was a different person back then.
When he introduced me to Ed on the show, when he told me his name was Eduardo, I thought we were going to get someone with like what you were doing with some sexy Hispanic accent, and then he sounds like the whitest. He's the whitest Hispanic.
Yeah.
He's like the whitest Cuban that is out there, I think. And so I was just like, when he first came on, I was thinking, really? That's not what I was
you were expecting Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, and instead she got Donny Osmond. But, Donny Osmond's nothing to sneeze at, No. So, and we did this show for 8 episodes, and I was, again, like I was with the sex on the Facebook page, I was kind of like, this is not going to go for too long. I don't like it. And it's funny because we were doing improv, and we were reviewing the first part of Series 7, the first half of Series 7 of Doctor Who in character. And we tried different things like put sound clips from the episode in and talk about each individual thing. We were going to do a simulcast like some of the shows do where we do a narration of it talking about the episode as we saw it. And none of those ideas worked. And I thought, why don't we just retool this thing. So at the end of episode 8, our characters went through a dimensional wormhole that was created by the bad guy of the series that we never actually had on the show as a character. I mean, we talked about the character, but we never actually had an actor playing the character. And at the end of the sound effect that I created of us going through the vortex, we come out the other side, and it's, I'm Mark Baumgarten, host of Mark Who 42's Whoniverse. And then we ended it on that. So it was like our characters turned into the real world and became us. And then we took 2 months to retool the show, and we came back. We recorded at the end of October, but it came out the first full week of November 2012. And that is like five years ago.
Well, that's quite the evolution, honestly.
Yeah.
We go from Spank Bank to the show that you take to your mom and dad.
Yeah. And, I think this time you notice I haven't gone, this isn't going to last. I think we should change it. Because we kept it. We did change the name because it was originally Mark Who 42's Whoniverse. And do you remember why we dropped the Whoniverse, Trish? I don't know if...
I think
nobody and their mom could spell it.
Well, no, isn't there another podcast out there that was called The Whoniverse or something?
Yeah, they came out after us. They took our name, and anytime you Google searched Whoniverse, you wouldn't get us, you would get them. So I thought Mark Who 42, we'll just shorten it and make it easier. And, of course, now it's even longer than it ever was, because the radio show that we do here on Krypton Radio is called Mark Who 42. But if you look on the podcast sites and everything, we're Doctor Who, the Mark Who 42 radio show, which is, more than a mouthful. And yes, I'm going back to what we were talking about before, and no, we're a family-friendly show, so I can't.
Mark Who 42. I love that. That's my favorite. Like, every time I hear it, I always have to, like go along with it.
When's the best time to listen to Mark Who 42, Iggy?
Right now.
No, that's not what I mean.
Right now, yesterday, 5 minutes from now.
No, your special time.
Actually, the best time to listen to Mark Who 42 is after dark.
Oh, I love when you say that. Okay. Doctor Who after.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then, Eduardo. Okay, so then when did Christian board the vehicle of Mark Who 42?
Okay, well, we were doing the typical podcast where we would just talk about a subject for an hour and be talking heads. And I thought, we need some guests. So I came across Christian on Facebook as well. He was trying to become a voiceover actor. And knowing that, Ed was a part-time actor, he did some stuff. And, I kind of called Christian up, talked to him, heard his voice, thought it was a good voice, and knew that he was working on something called Dr. Stu, which was a Family Guy Doctor Who thing, as a writer. and thought, maybe he'd make a good...
Oh my God, was he Peter?
No, he didn't do the voice. He didn't do the voice. But it would have been funny. But I had him on as a guest, and I liked his knowledge of Doctor Who. I liked his humor. He definitely brought a adult humor to the show while keeping it restrained a little. Sometimes not. And I thought, you know what? I think he could work. So I talked to Trish, I talked to Ed, and Ed was a little, I don't know if we should add someone to the show because 3's a lot of people. But I said, I'm going to use my...
Shut up, Ed.
I'm going to use my seniority and overrule you, Ed. And I asked Christian to be a part of the show. And I'm glad I did because Christian is... you joke, Iggy, about, you're married and stuff. But he's been a very good partner on this show. Getting the guests is mostly down to him. He knows how to finagle these actors and actresses that we've had on the show and writers and stuff.
Yeah, he has got a natural
them on the show. He's got a natural talent, business talent. And, that's why it's not a couple now. It's about 6 months he's been co-producer on the show. He does a lot for the show. And I was very happy when he said, yes, he would come on board the show.
So the next on the list is Patty Hawkins, right?
Patty kind of came on the same way. We met him at a convention as part of the Geeks of Comedy. I thought he'd be a good guest as a member of the Geeks of Comedy. We'd have a whole comedy show about Doctor Who. And I think I had him on 2 or 3 different times before I said, you know what, I think we could go with the 5th. So I brought him on. He said yes. And, he's got great knowledge of Doctor Who as well. Iggy had, at this point, come into the scene doing reviews of the show, and she had a concept of doing a podcast herself, and so Ed
knowing how indie crap to do it.
Right. So Ed and Trish, you decided it was time to leave Mark Who 42 and go to Pastures Anew and do this new Let's Be Reals thing.
Which, to be fair, I could have never done it, ever, without Eduardo and Trish.
Yeah, I'm sure
Trish has always been very good about, hey, what about this, and what about that, and what about this? She's always in my brain, and I'm like, keep talking. I'm almost there. You're cooking something good. Okay, and Eduardo's really good about just doing it. He makes it look so easy, and then you have Mark over here who's like, you can totally do this. Let me tell you the story about how Mark Who 42 started out. Don't give up. And then you got Christian who's like, keep doing it. You got this. Look at the traveling TARDIS. I also have a thing that's going on here. And, it would not be possible without these wonderful people.
But, and also, if you think about it, your show that you do on Blog Talk Radio, that you do live every Saturday, because of history, that probably wouldn't have came to be if it wasn't for me giving Ed a chance in episode 2 to come on the show and Trish being part of Mark Who 42. So actually, we kind of spawned your show.
Yes, you birthed it.
We birthed it. So we're going to get our tubes tied so that it never happens again. No, that's not true. That's not true.
Bringing it back.
That's not true. That's not true. So, Iggy, thanks for talking with Trish and I about the origins of Mark Who 42.
That was both fun and traumatizing. It was great.
It was traumatizing.
Just like the show itself.
Well, that's the purpose.
A little of both.
A little of both. Hey, gang, it's our 200th episode. I cannot believe we have been doing this.
Yeah.
It's utterly amazing. But you know what else is utterly amazing?
What's that, sir?
Our listeners and our fans. And to bring something to our fans, it's time for the convention report.
Woo!
Yes, sir. We're not done yet for the end of this year. Starting this weekend, November 10th through the 12th, for our friends in Long Island, up there in the New England area at the Hyatt Regency Long Island Resort. Our friend, Patty Hawkins, will be up there. He will be hosting panels, and he will be doing guest interviews at Li Who. He will also be, and I just got confirmation, he'll be having the traveling TARDIS with him when he's up there. So if you want to get pictures with the TARDIS, be part of the legend, please go and check out Long Island's, or better known as Who, Long Island's Doctor Who convention, November 10th through the 12th. Check it out.
It's
also,
their fifth one too, kind of like 5 years, like us.
Wow, that's interesting. Finally, we get together 5 years after. But Patty will be up there. But the following weekend, Mark and I are going to be at the Claremont Performing Arts Center at 37 South Highway 27 in Claremont, Florida, for Claremont Comic-Con. It's a one-day event, and it will be taking place again at Sunday, November 19th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tickets are $12. And all these convention informations, their links will be on our webpage at marku42.net. The following weekend, Turkey Thanksgiving Day, we're going to be, or at least Mark will be there, and I don't know of my schedule yet, but the following weekend on Thanksgiving Day weekend from November 24th to the 26th at the Hilton Orlando Buena Vista Palace right outside of Disney, Orlando Con, their first year, better known as Hurricane Who, will be out there.
Hey, did you hear that Pearl Mackey's showing up?
Pearl Mackey, yeah, the big S out there will be Pearl Mackey, so you will get to see technically a current companion.
Eve Miles will be there.
And who else is going to be there?
They're still naming people.
Yep, stomped you. Eve Miles, our friend Gareth David Lloyd, who's been
he's always here,
featured on the show. I believe, and Eve Miles. So it's going to be a mixture of Torchwood and Doctor Who.
And other things. They're going to have more. There's going to be gaming. If you're into gaming, there'll be a gaming room. It's going to be not just Doctor Who centric. It's now Orlando.
Well, it's still Doctor Who centric with others.
With others, yeah.
Doctor Who
kind of
friends.
like Mark Who 42 is Doctor Who centric with others.
Exactly there.
Yeah.
But Orlando Con will be taking place at the Hilton Orlando Buena Vista. Get your tickets now at marku42.net and click on the link. Both at Claremont Con and the Orlando Con will both have the Mark Who 42 booth. If you're looking to get your Doctor Who fix merchandise on, definitely come out there and see us at both of those conventions. Both of them are just weekends behind each other. And Mark, last but not least, we got one more convention. And well, it's more of like a party, but I'll let you.
It's a New Year's Eve party. It's a New Year's Eve Time Lord Ball, hosted by the Ken Spivey Band on Sunday, December 31st at 6 p.m. to 12:30. We're gonna rock in the New Year Doctor Who style. It's going to take place at the Brass Bug at 1450 Skipper Road in Tampa, Florida, and it's going to be great. Right now you can get pre-sale admission tickets by going to their Facebook site. It's $20 for general admission, $18 for student or military. It becomes about $30 at the door and $26 at the door for those. It's going to be fun. Children 10 and under are free as long as they are with a adult. You know, they can't just go themselves. Sorry. Kids, you have to go with your parents on New Year's Eve. And yes, I do realize that to some kids, I don't want to go with my parents. I want to do my own thing. Well, you got to do it with your parents.
That was a horrible impression. I just wanted to let you know
that.
It
was supposed to be good.
Horrible.
So there's going to be a special performance by the Time Lord Rock Band, Ken Spivey Band. There's going to be tons of free goodies. Special guests, a live sock hop dance band. Fan panels discussing Series 10 on the Christmas special, featuring one of the panelists, namely me, Mark Baumgarten. We're going to have a Trivia of Rassilon game with fantastic goodies as prizes, and a full bar will be available. Since this is New Year's Eve, we've got to have champagne.
You know where Mark will be the whole night.
No, I'll be at my booth selling Doctor Who books.
Oh, you're going to have your booth out there? Okay.
We're going to have our booth
cool.
there. So it's going to be fun, and we ask you to join us there for New Year's Eve at the New Year's Eve Time Lord Ball.
There you go. Now, I just want to let everybody know, very importantly, as we wrap up the show, you may have seen some changes on our Facebook page. What was originally the Mark Who 42 Facebook site is now the business end. It's called Mark Who 42 Enterprises. And our fan page has moved. What used to be the Traveling TARDIS is now Mark Who 42 and the Traveling TARDIS for all the updates as far as new episodes, new news, and everything. They're both kind of shared between the pages, but one is more for our business, as we have started a podcast conglomeration under the umbrella of Mark Who 42 Enterprises. And not only that, but I'm going to introduce one of our family members. Iggy coming aboard is Let's Be Reals. Now, for people who want to continue to geek out even after Mark Who 42, Iggy, can you tell folks about your production, Let's Be Reals, and where they can find you.
Well, you can go ahead and find me on Facebook. If you type in Let's Be Reals, is Reels, R-E-E-L with a Z. And Let's Be Reals is basically the Beyond the Hooniverse minus all the professionalism and watching of our words. I know we joke a lot about After Dark. That's exactly what it is. So if you want a little bit of that Hooniverse After Dark, come find us at Keeping It Reals and the new show that I will be releasing soon, Strictly Geekly All Female. So I'm excited to be joining the Mark Who 42 family.
The science fiction view will be coming to Mark Who 42.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
And you can listen to Keeping It Reals on Blog Talk Radio right now. It's on Saturday nights, isn't it?
And you can hear extra from some of the guests that have actually appeared on the show here with us and see their more After Dark side as well. But yes, Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be live talking geek bleeps.
Talking bleeping geek. Sounds good.
Bleeping geek.
Wow.
Bleeping geeks.
Ladies and gentlemen, this marks our 200th episode. We couldn't do this without you. All of our fans, all of our friends who have been there since the first episode to now the 200th episode. All the guests celebrity guests have been on. Everybody who's been listening to us. Everybody who's accepted us in their family. Krypton Radio, iHeart, iTunes, everyone. We want to give a special thank you out because we can't do this without you. And we are ready, set, go to not only grow Mark Who 42 Enterprises into new podcasts, into a big whole new conglomeration of geeking out on a level that you will love to just stick around with. But Mark Who 42 also is expanding as well, with almost over 30,000 likes on our Facebook page, and our audience continues to grow and grow. We will continue to bring you the best of the Hooniverse and beyond for every episode that we produce for you. And again, we want to give you a big thank you. As we're approaching Thanksgiving Day, we want to give thanks to all of you who have been with us throughout wherever you started and wherever you're coming in. If you're coming in now listening to our 200th episode, we want you all to stick around for 400 episodes, for 600 to 1,000 episodes, however far Mark Who 42, we want you to be part of this wonderful ride that we call Mark Who 42.
Oh, and I have one other piece of information for you, speaking with Mark Who 42 Enterprises. Our Who's Listening segment that we've been doing has been so popular that we are spinning it off into its very own podcast. Starting in the next couple of weeks, Who's Listening with Mark and Chris will be available on iTunes and on the net, where all it is reviewing Big Finish and having a good time while doing it. We hope you listen in, that you liked what you sampled the last 4 weeks, and now we're going to have our own show.
Well, that's flippin' exciting.
Yeah, it is. So it should be fun. It won't be as long as this show. Yes, this show sometimes goes for 9.5, 2 hours. We're going to be keeping the Big Finish review shows less than 45 minutes. So don't worry. You can listen to our reviews and still make it to wherever you're driving to on time without having to sit in the car and listen for an hour the rest of the episode. Because, that's what they have to do with our show. They drive, they think, oh, okay, it's only a half-hour drive to work. I'll put Mark Who 42 on, and then, I'll just sit.
Well, it's not only that. We have
work.
We have friends that go jogging listening to us. Yeah. They have friends at the office. I listen to The Office when it's on Krypton or iHeart. Mm-hmm. So we have different ways.
While doing domestic duties.
Well, now if you have less, yes, she did. And if you have less time, you can listen to Who's Listening with Mark and Chris, and it'll be Big Finish all the way.
So if I can actually say an old phrase that we had for, I think, our 100th episode, stick around, because you'll never know what we're going to say next.
Have TARDIS will travel. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
200. Mark Who 42 is written and presented by Mark Baumgarten, Christian Basil, Patty Hawkins, Iggy Matthews, and Zion Kiros. This episode was edited, directed, and produced by Mark Baumgarten and co-produced by Christian Basil. Visit markwho42.net, where you can register and become part of the Hooniverse Army. We can be contacted by email at mark@markwho42, subject line, ? If you'd like a chance to be a guest on our radio show, send an email to our Media Relations Director, Christian Basil, at markwho42media@yahoo.com. You can have Mark Who 42 entertain at your next event or convention. Go to heroesonhand.com/markwho42. Space Coast Comics is a free monthly magazine found in over 120 locations currently throughout Brevard County, parts of Osceola, Volusia, and Indian River County in Florida, and available in Chicago. Follow them on Facebook to learn more. Doctor Who and its properties are owned by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. This show is owned and copyrighted by Mark Who 42 Enterprises, LLC, 2017.